Morning. How are you guys today? Doing all right? Getting through the week? All right. Well, today I'm speaking, and so as I was preparing for this, I was trying to figure out what do you want to speak? What should I speak to the students, God? And so I was just reminded, it keeps coming back to me over and over again, just a message, and so that God's been speaking to my life, and so I wanted to just share that with you today. This year, at the beginning of the year, I made a goal. I wanted to kind of read through the Bible again, and I started with Genesis, and I've been working my way through. And I've just come to really fall in love with the story of the Bible again. I just love this story. I'm a sucker for stories anyway. That's just one of the things that I love. I love to read. I love to watch movies. I love the story. And so, I'm a fan of Star Wars, not necessarily because it's in space and all this kind of stuff. I love the story. I love getting drawn in. I love the characters and just the way that you can feel the emotions. That's the same reason I love Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. I know, kind of labeling myself here as a little bit of a nerd, and that's okay. I'm all right with that. I'm confident in who I am. But I just love the story. And so as I've been going through, I've just been falling in love again with the story, with God's story. And one of the things that God has been that showed to me as I was reading through the book of Exodus is what I want to share with you today. But I want to give you a little bit of kind of background before we jump into the message that I feel like is relevant and important for today. And so some of you may or may not be familiar with the story of Exodus. Exodus starts off with the people of Israel, God's people, being in slavery. They were slaves in Egypt. And so I just want to pause there for a second, and I want to go back and say, why are they slaves in Egypt, okay? There was this man named Joseph. He was a boy, actually, when he was sold into slavery by his brothers. He was second youngest out of 12 brothers. His brothers hated him because he was his dad's favorite, and they took him and they sold him into slavery. Cool family, right? Okay, so he gets sold to slavery. These slavers come, they sell him to Egypt. He gets put in prison there. Long story. He gets risen up. God is with him throughout all that whole time. And he gets risen up, and he gets put in second in command of all of Egypt. God does this amazing thing through the story, and Joseph is elevated to second in command. Pharaoh is the only one higher than him in all of Egypt. And Joseph is here, and he is in charge. Well, his brothers back home, a few years later, they start to experience a famine. That means no food, okay? And it's not like here we can go down to 7-Eleven, we can go to Casey's or Dollar General and grab a loaf of bread, right? They have to grow what they eat. And there's no water, it's famine, no food. So they run out of food. So it's a very severe famine. It lasts 7 years. So they run out of food, and they know that down in Egypt, there's food. Joseph had a warning that this was coming, so the previous 7 years, he had saved up all this food. So he has all this stockpile, and they're coming to him, and they're asking and begging for food. But here's the thing. They don't know that they're begging to Joseph. So they come before their brother, and they're begging for food. And through all this, he kind of reveals, or hides himself at first, doesn't reveal that he's their brother. But eventually, he reveals, I'm your brother Joseph. And everyone celebrates, and they go back, and they get their father, and they bring them down, and they reunite with Joseph. And they kind of settle in this very fertile part of Egypt. And they're very prosperous. God is with them, and they multiply. And soon the Egyptians see, wow, God is really blessing them. They're super prosperous. They're growing in numbers. Soon they're going to outnumber us. We need to do something about this. And so they enslave them. And they make them do hard labor. And they put them to work out in the fields. And they put them to work building pyramids and different structures. And so here is where Exodus starts. The people of Israel are slaves. And they've been slaves for 400 years. So I just want to put that in perspective. We haven't even been a country for 400 years. Okay? So for 400 years, they've been slaves in Egypt. And this is where the story picks up. They're crying out to God, please deliver us. They're crying out for justice. Do something about this, God. It's not right. So God shows up in a really amazing, powerful way. And he sends Moses into Egypt. And he says, I'm going to show my power through you. And through this, all the people will be saved. Okay? And so he goes down and Moses goes to Pharaoh and says, hey, let my God's people go. They want to go out, worship him. Let them go. And Pharaoh, of course, says, no, they're my slaves. I'll do what I want. I'm powerful. Okay? And so he goes down and Pharaoh says no. And so God says, oh yeah? Watch this. And he kind of flexes his muscles a little bit, God does. And he does like 10 of these, what we call plagues now, to the 10 plagues. And so the first one, God turned all the water in the land into blood. No one had anything to drink. All the fish in the rivers died. Their whole economics was based around the Nile and the river and the water. And so they couldn't grow and the things were going wrong. And so that was the first one. God's like, oh yeah, watch this. I'm more powerful than you. And then he causes frogs to come up out of the waters, and they just kind of invade the land. The frogs are everywhere. They're like on their beds, they're on their tables, they're on them. They're like, wherever they go, there's frogs everywhere. It's just really annoying. So Pharaoh's finally like, fine. Just tell them to go away, and then you can go. And so Moses prays, and they go away, and then Pharaoh's like, nah, I changed my mind. You got to stay. And he does this several other times. Plagues 3 and 4 are biting insects and then wild animals. Plagues 5 and 6 are livestock diseases and then boils all over the people. Just these skin boils, and they're all over the people and the livestock. Then plague 7, God sends this fiery hail from heaven, and it destroys crops. And if people are still out in the fields, it kills people if they're stuck out in the field. And there's just devastation. Still, Pharaoh says, no, you can't leave. You got to stay. So God does, okay, all of this destruction, anything that's left alive, any of your crops that are still available, he sends locusts, and they just eat everything. Like plagues, like those little grasshopper things, they're just covering trees. That's how I imagine it. They're covering plants. They eat everything that's left and just destroy the crops. And so everything's destroyed. Then in plague 9, he sends darkness over the whole land for days. It's like, I am in control of even the light. I am powerful. And we see God displaying his power. And then it comes to the last one, the last plague. And God says, you know what? You're still not listening to me. I'm going to have to be forceful here. So the next plague is that any firstborn I'm going to take. I'm going to kill. They're going to be mine. The firstborn of all of Egypt, whether people or livestock, I am going to take. The only way to be saved is to put the blood of an innocent lamb over the doorframe. And so the Spirit of the Lord came through that night, and those that had the blood over the doorframe, he passed over. He passed by. This is why the Israelites, the Jews, celebrate the Passover. It's in honoring and remembering this amazing act that set them free. But he went through the land, and the next morning, every firstborn, livestock, people in Egypt, was dead. And so here we have Pharaoh grieving the loss of his firstborn son, and he says, you know what? You and your God, just get out of here. I don't want any more destruction. I don't want any more death. Just leave. And the people of Egypt, they're like, yes, please, you're a curse on us. Just get out of here. They're giving them gold and silver as they leave. And so literally, the Israelites plundered Egypt. They destroyed their crops. They killed. There's death throughout the land. And they stole all their treasure. Well, it's given to them, actually. But they're plundering Egypt as they leave. And God has done this amazing, amazing thing. He has freed them from slavery, given them wealth, and really taken out their enemy. And so God delivers them. And so they go out into the wilderness, and Moses leads them to the Red Sea. And at about this point, Pharaoh realizes, oh wait, I just let all of my slaves go. How am I going to do the work that needs to be done? And so he's like, okay, actually, army, round up, go get them back. So he sends his chariots, he sends his army, his warriors out to go get them. And they're stuck there. The Red Sea is on one side of them, the army's on the other, and they're like, what? Why did you do this, God? Moses, what is going on here? Were there no more graves in Egypt? Did you bring us out here to die? Like, what's up with this? Even after they had seen all these miraculous things, a few days later, they're saying, God, what's up? Why are you doing this? There's no point to this. Where are you at? Don't you even care? And God does a miraculous thing again. Something that can't be explained by science. It can't be explained by natural forces. God literally parts the water. And they walk across the sea on dry land. It says in the scriptures, there's a wall of water on the right and a wall of water on the left. And they walk through on dry land. God shows his power. And he just says like, oh yeah, watch this. You're worried about these circumstances? Trust in me. And so the Israelites walk through. And the Egyptians are still chasing them, pursuing them, trying to kill them and capture them. So they follow them into the Red Sea. And as soon as the Israelites are safe, God closes the water back. And it kills all of the army in one fell swoop. It's like, whew, gone. And here we pick up in Exodus 15. And this is where God started speaking to me as I was reading this story. And I'm just going to read a little bit of this song. Because what happens is when they see God's power, they burst out in song. And this is what it says in Exodus 15. Then Moses and the Israelites, sang this song to the Lord. I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has hurled into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. He is my God, and I will praise him. My father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior. The Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his armies have been hurled into the sea. The best of Pharaoh's officers are drowned in the Red Sea. The deep waters have covered them, and they sank to the depths like a stone. Your right hand, O Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand shattered the enemy. In the greatness of your majesty, you threw down those who opposed you. You unleashed your burning anger, and it consumed them like stubble. By the blast of your nostrils, you piled up the waters. The surging waters stood firm like a wall. The deep waters congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy boasted, I will pursue. I will overtake them, and I will divide the spoils. I will gorge myself on them. I will draw my sword in my hand, and I will destroy them. But you blew your breath, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who among the gods is like you, O Lord? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glory, working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, and the earth swallowed them. In your unfailing love, you will lead the people you have redeemed. In your strength, you will guide them to your holy dwelling. And so we see this. At the end of this mighty, awesome deed, the people are looking to God and saying, yes, you're our God. We trust in you. You know, one of the reasons that we sing here in chapel is to point us to God. Not because we like singing necessarily, although some of us do. Not necessarily because that's just what we do. The idea of singing, the purpose of this is to remind us that he is in control. That he is powerful and he deserves the glory because he is working in our lives. And so, we see that. The people are happy. They've just been saved. They're singing his praises. They're happy and at peace. If you read a few verses later, this is what I find really interesting. They leave the Red Sea and they go just a few days into the wilderness. They just seen God part the Red Sea, and they're in the wilderness. And they come to this water, and they can't drink it. It's kind of gross, bitter. It doesn't taste good. It's not good for them. And so they just start complaining. God, what's up? Did you bring us out here to die? We should have just stayed in Egypt. We should have been slaves. It would have been better there than it is here in this wilderness. 3 days after they had just seen this amazing thing, they're looking at their circumstances and they're complaining and they're grumbling. I find that fascinating because so often in my life, I can relate. I've seen God do amazing things in my life. I didn't share this with First Chapel, but when I was young, what do we got here? When I was young, My dad was diagnosed with a disease that just had him in pain all day long, all nonstop. So from my 7th grade year to my freshman year, he was on painkillers and muscle relaxers all day. He was just kind of cranky, when you're in pain all the time, you just kind of get cranky, and that's just the way he was. But I've seen God heal him of that disease completely. He no longer has it. He no longer deals with that anymore. I've seen God do the amazing. I've seen God split the Red Sea, so to speak. That was like a night and day difference for my dad. One day, he was just in pain, walking with a cane. The next day, set free. But we often don't see the big things. Sometimes it's harder when we have to go through the day-to-day looking for God in the little things in our life. Sometimes it's easy to complain about something when we focus on ourselves rather than God and what He's done for us. Or better yet, what He's doing for us. So when I was a youth pastor in Salina before I came here, we'd go on these mission trips, and they'd be like 300-400 kids from all over the United States. They'd come together, and they'd split them up into different groups, and they'd go around and work on different houses in the community there. And one of the cool things that they did there that we took back and I tried to implement into our youth group was these things called God sightings, where we're looking for God at work in our day-to-day lives. And so sometimes when the students would come back from their mission trip, they would say, you know what, I really saw God at work. There was like 5 or 6 people from all over the United States, and they come together, and we just meshed like that. How amazing is that? To get people from Chicago and Washington and Arizona and all over, different cultures, different backgrounds, to come together and just click. That's an amazing thing. That's God at work. Even though it's a small thing, it's still a miracle. And so we have to look and keep our eyes open to what God is doing in our lives. Keep our eyes on God, not on our circumstances. And we'll be filled with peace and hope. And we'll sing our praises to God. So, what I encourage you to do, I want to leave you with this. I challenge you. No matter what you're going through, I want you to take a moment, and I want you to think about, how have I seen God working in my life? Big or small. I'll give you an example. Today, I woke up, and I have a busy day. And I woke up with just this pounding headache, and my throat was on fire. It was like I couldn't hardly talk. And I just thought, oh my goodness. I have a day full of RA interviews, which, by the way, all of those you who are applying, it's been an honor and it's been awesome getting to know you and hear your story. You guys are awesome. But I have a day full of that, plus I have to speak in chapel twice. It's like, God, I can't do it if I'm like this. I need your strength. I said, please, just take this away. Heal it. Heal me from this. So it wasn't instantaneous, but like I get my coffee and I go to my interviews this morning, and I'm sitting there, and about halfway through I realize, oh, my headache's gone. That's cool. I get here and I'm like, oh, my throat doesn't hurt. God is at work. We just have to open our eyes to see God working. God is always at work. And I encourage you, when you see those things, it will encourage you, it'll motivate you to praise God. God is good, and He's working in our lives. It doesn't have to be the big, grandiose things that draw us to Him. If we keep our eyes focused on Him and what He's doing, we can continue to be encouraged and focus and have that joy and that peace, even in the midst of hard times, because we know that God is working. And even if we can't see Him at this moment, He's there and He's in control. And so I want to hear some tips real quick, and then I'll let you go. I want you to begin maybe with prayer. Ask God, open my eyes to see you at work around me. What are some things that you're doing? Show me. Take these blinders off. Sometimes we have these blinders on. We can get focused on our task and on our day and our schedule. And when we ask Him to remove those blinders, we can say, oh, I see you working here, God. I see you working here. And it encourages us, and it draws us closer to Him. Go for the small. Don't go for the big things. Don't look for the grandiose things necessarily. Look for the small things, the fleeting glimpses, the whispers, not the shouts. Look not at individuals, but at relationships. Pay attention to the service, the small acts of mercy around you, the sacrifices, what we do out of love. Those things, don't come naturally. Those are miracles. Those are things that God is doing in us and through us. So I want to just give you a moment, 30 seconds. I want you just to close your eyes, and I want you to think about, where have I seen God working in my life this week? Go ahead and do that. Close your eyes and just think, where have I seen God working in my life this week? Or maybe I haven't seen him. Maybe I don't know him yet. I say, God, show me yourself. I want to believe. Show me who you are. Reveal yourself to me. I want to see you. God, I thank you for today. I thank you for these students. I love you, and I know you're real, and I've witnessed and experienced it on so many levels. I pray that you would reveal yourself to these students, that they may be encouraged, that they may have that peace and joy that comes from knowing you and putting their faith and trust in you, no matter the circumstances. Circumstances in life are going to be up and down, but you are faithful through the midst of all of them. Thank you for being at work in our lives. I pray that we would open our eyes to see you at work, and we can see what you're doing and be encouraged and give that praise and glory back to you and sing that song to you. I pray that you would, for those of you, the students maybe that don't know you yet, I pray that you would reveal yourself in a real and mighty and powerful way like you did to the Israelites. I pray there would be something huge, that you would just show yourself that has to be God. There's no other explanation. Lord, we love you, we praise you, we give you all the glory today. Amen. Just one moment before you go. I don't want you to just keep this thing to yourself, this thing you've been thinking about, how you've seen God working, or maybe if you see something that God is doing in your life. Don't keep it to yourself. I want you to share it with someone else. It's not for yourself. Through sharing this, we encourage one another. We help each other keep our focus on God. So if you see something that God is doing, share it with someone else and say, wow, God is good, and point others to him as well.